All right, boys, I want to start things off with a question. What was the most played shaft, driver shaft, on the PGA Tour over the last 2 years?
So, has to be Ventus.
Well,
has to be Ventus.
Seeing as we're holding them, I'm going to guess it was Ventus?
Since we're holding them in our hands, you're right, it is Ventus. The most played driver shaft on the PGA Tour over the last 2 seasons. 2 major wins in 2022, FedEx Cup champion, also playing Ventus. Now, they have 3 profiles in the original Ventus line that came out. You got the red, the blue, and the black. But while using their Enzo motion capture system at Fuji, they found that there was a little bit of stress that was going on during the downswing and transition. So they decided to do something new in a different product. They're calling it Ventus TR. Now, the big change here is going to be a spread toe fabric. Now, fabric doesn't really, I mean, would you say that fabric would be something that you think would help stabilize the shaft?
It's outside the box from what we traditionally would see.
It is, but this is a lightweight spread toe fabric that's placed in the midsection up through the handle. And what it's gonna help do is exactly what Fuji saw with their motion capture. It's gonna help stabilize this product. So, as you can see, there's gonna be a black, you've got a blue, RB, you've got the red. They're all gonna be more stable than the original Ventus. Now, it's important to note that the original Ventus isn't going away. This is just a more stable product. I am unfortunately a lefty, so I'm going to the bullpen and calling in the righty. RB, I want you to test these, man. Let's go through all 3 profiles. Let's see what happens. I just want to know, like, launch, spin, what are we seeing? All right, before we have you hit it, what do you think of the graphics?
I like it. It's really sharp, and like one of the things with talking about spread toe is you can see it.
Visible
right?
technology.
So, you know, when people ask like, what does it actually mean? You know, you can really explain and say, look, you can see the fibers running in opposite directions. It's creating that stability. It's not just like one layer, it's different layers woven in. That's what you know, like any other fabric, it's woven together. And so that's where you get the stability. So, I mean, it looks really sharp. I like it.
Chris, I mean, let's get the fitter perspective here. What have you seen from the TR from recent testing?
So initial testing, one thing that Fuji's claiming is a much stiffer handle section in the red. And that was a big one that we noticed just kind of doing some player testing with it, was the stability and the consistency going from current red into new TR red was a little bit more player feedback and a little bit better relationship as to where the club was through the transition, especially for players that do hit it a little bit and add a little bit more of a harder load through the transition. So curious to see what your feedback is with it. Just from what we've seen, it's definitely a noticeable difference as far as stability goes.
All right, so this is of the 3, the softest mid and tip section. So you can get a little bit higher launch out of it. Again, not crazy high launch is what they're saying, more of a mid launch?
Yeah, like for this, the Ventus line is designed to be stable. It's designed to be lower launch in general. So if you think of other shafts in the Fuji line, there are shafts that are going to be higher launch in general.
Right.
You have ones that are going to fit more in that mid category. For players that are looking for stability and lower, Ventus is the way to go. It's just where do you fit in the Ventus profile for your load profile of your golf swing? Like, are you a hitter? Are you a little smoother? And what are you looking for feel as well?
I've even seen a couple of those out on the PGA Tour, red.
Yeah. You see a lot in fairway woods for sure.
Yeah, I've seen some in the driver too.
Good ball there.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the first one, but that was a lot better.
Launching. So the first one was like launching in about 10.5. That's 13.5.
Yeah, the first one was definitely a low miss, but.
Let's get one more through it. Realize feel is very subjective, but how does that red feel to you at impact?
Kind of to what you said, Chris, like it feels more towards like the original blue if I was to compare it to like just stability wise. I do feel if I'm using something that's soft in the handle, I have a very difficult time timing it up.
Sure.
Just because I am quicker, you know, not that I'm a big dude, but like Canadian hockey player, kind of like I always felt that was my transition style. So for me, trying something like this, I really like it. Again, like having used black and blue in the past, I mean, that worked pretty good. I could pretty much put this driver in the bag so far. So
okay, that's going to be playable anywhere you're playing.
Yeah. All right, so let's go from red to blue.
All right. Now you didn't change the weight of the head at all.
Nope.
See,
Now, why?
I noticed this before. It feels a little bit heavier. I don't know if that's a balance point thing. If there's like a slight change in it, I don't know. Again, I'd have to put it on a swing weight scale to know, but.
That's interesting.
So to elaborate on that, what you're feeling is the transition from the Ventus TR Red that has one of the stiffest handle sections into the blue that's going to have a little bit more torsional stability in the midsection, but it actually has a softer handle section. That was a dud. It's playable miss though.
Yeah.
Impact position's definitely trending more towards the heel
Yeah.
going into this profile.
Now, why would that be?
So it could be just the essential droop in the shaft as he goes back into his release pattern. How the shaft is actually releasing could be different than what we saw in the red, and that could be just the change and transition from the handle section.
Yeah, it feels. I mean, I'm hitting it low on the face. I mean, I like to see what happens when I really square one up.
That seemed like to be a good one right there.
Yeah.
All right, I'm trying to. So launch, dropped a touch.
Yeah, better impact position on the face.
Yeah.
Is there a ball speed, like a big ball speed difference between the two so far?
So I would say the change in that handle section, we're definitely seeing, potentially a little more deflection out of it. Because who you are as a player, as far as the angles we create, hasn't changed dramatically.
I think it looked like I was a little more up too with the blue. So again, just it's crazy how like those simple changes make such a big difference in like delivery. Which people ask like, what is the difference? What does the shaft actually do? It influences the player in how they deliver the golf club and all that other kind of stuff. So everyone's going to be a little bit different, and so as far as perception is concerned, that's always one of the really important things for a lot of people is understanding and being able to like. Again, in this scenario, I'm like, we're going through like, we'll call like a mini fitting and trying to understand these golf shafts. If I would tell a player immediately, like, again, this feels heavy. You hand that to me, one hand on this thing, giving it a wiggle, haven't changed anything again, feels way heavier. That little wiggle test, like it feels way stiffer.
Sure.
Again.
That's your feel. So feel is completely unique to the player.
Yeah, I can go at this hard. So.
And that's got the most stable, it's gonna be the stiffest mid and tip in that Ventus TR line, so.
Right.
And also goes back into a much stiffer handle section as well.
Yes, that's a very good point.
The profile here is in addition to the current black, but it plays as the stiffest version, even stiffer than the current black. Yeah. So player testing with this, I had guys that were absolutely moving it, that straight in, no tip adjustment, and comparable testing, and they're telling me this is too stiff. Yeah. So for somebody out there that struggles with high launch, high spin, could be a really good option to look at.
Yeah. That was toey. First kind of like big miss to the right, but I mean, for a shot that was
moving, it felt like.
Yeah. That was, I mean, for a toe strike, that would be, I'd very much take that.
That's probably, what is that, lowest spin that we've seen so far?
2,400.
24?
I feel like I can go this thing as hard as I want, and I'm not gonna like lose it. I would say that it's not my preferred feel, but I know that what you have to do to kind of get what you want out of it to like achieve the performance characteristics, I guess.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm watching you hit this drive, and it feels like you're going after it more.
I feel like I have to like kind of get the feedback I want from it. It's crazy to see how low the spin is. Again, that wasn't. I would say that was probably more towards the toe again. I don't know the exact number, but it was definitely out there. Yeah. But I'll say, like, if you ever hit a shaft that's like really soft and you miss one, you kind of feel like the head just kind of wobbles.
Right.
I don't feel like I'm getting that. Again, a couple toe strikes here.
Right.
I don't feel that at all.
Yeah.
So no big miss through this sample at all. It's been an extremely stable ball flight, which is essentially as advertised for this profile.
Yeah.
And there is not a lot of movement from where you introduced the face at impact.
And looking at the distance, I know the red one, we had the first one, I will definitely admit it wasn't my best strike. But knowing that my worst strike with this one was the one that was kind of further out to the right in dispersion, but distance-wise was all out there, I think that goes to show what kind of stability you're going to get from it with that type of player. So, I mean, it definitely feels the most stable.
I mean, looking at the numbers, without removing any of the mishits, if we're taking a look at just this raw data, right? And we look at the spin profiles here, and as we get into the tighter profiles, the deltas are tighter as you get into the blue and the black. So we would kind of expect that, especially where we kind of talked about load pattern, release pattern. But if we go in and we remove one mishit out of the red and one mishit out of the blue, it paints a completely different picture. I mean, if we take that very first shot out there, very first shot out here, go back into our comparison, and now we're looking at this. Now the red kind of jumps off the page a little bit with that very first swing that you took, which we'll call it kind of a finder swing, different profile, and coming right out of the gate. And looking at these three now comparatively, the launch angle for you stayed relatively consistent, but that spin threshold definitely shows us that there are some different things happening within these profiles. So if I'm looking at just the data that we are presented with now, I'm making a recommendation for that TR Red.
Oh yeah, I'm like, wow, okay.
You're ready to take it home.